Deputy Clare Daly.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle Taoiseach. Of course, it's not just in the areas of health that your government and your ministers are running into difficulties. And I'm wondering, could you tell us whether you've given your Minister for Transport an option on a job share where he can balance his ministerial responsibilities with the role as a mouthpiece for the management in the semi-state companies in their battles against the workforce? Because it seems that, not content with his unfettered access to the airwaves last weekend, where he could berate and bully Dublin Bus workers and warn them if they have the audacity or the neck to vote for a fifth time against attempts to take their pay and conditions, that pay and conditions would be butchered anyway, and it would be butchered with the full backing of the government. Yesterday, he came into this House during topical issues, and it was like an audience with Christoph Muller himself. Because against the backdrop of an unprecedented move by the Aer Lingus CEO to ignore the industrial relations machinery of the state, Minister Varadkar first told us that, well, it was nothing got to do with him, the 25% shareholding was irrelevancy. Then he told us that the increased traffic into Shannon was a good thing. Nobody would disagree with that. But then he boldly stated that Impact's objections to the new arrangement would make the Shannon cabin crew base commercially unsustainable for the company, and it would have little choice but to close that base. Now that, Taoiseach, is simply complete and utter nonsense. 4 airlines, 4 very competitive US airlines operate that aircraft on those routes out of Dublin, and all of them operated with a cabin crew complement of 6 staff. None of them have a problem with commercial unsustainability. In fact, a cabin crew norm of 6 is the industrial norm. So let's be clear, the real agenda here is to stand on the head and erode working conditions built up over generations and to facilitate a race to the bottom. In fact, the staff were prepared to look at a staffing arrangement of 4, or of 5, but we're told it's 4, or we're going to shut the base down. Shut the base down. 87 Aer Lingus jobs, some of them held for people by decades gone. This, Taoiseach, is a declaration of war, and my question is this a deliberate strategy? Because to take on one group of workers may be deemed to be a misfortune, but to take on 2 looks like a deliberate policy of union busting. And my question to you is, given that you have unleashed Christoph Muller in Aer Lingus, you're now sending him into An Post. Is your government engaged in a deliberate policy to eliminate secure, permanent, pensionable employment and to undermine the industrial relations machinery of the state? And if it isn't, could you order your hound dogs into the Labour court to deal with these issues in the traditional way?
You've had a good flight there. Gone from Dublin, Minister Varadkar, to Dublin Bus, to Aer Lingus, to Shannon, cabin crew staff. I'm not in the position of ordering any hound dogs anywhere, Deputy Daly. I understand that the ballot has obviously taken place in respect of the Dublin Bus situation. I hope that that's accepted and that there's a very clear result from it. People in Dublin need Dublin Bus. They provide a very valuable service. The majority of the workforce in Dublin Bus have accepted the recommendations. I do hope that when the ballot the ballot result is known, that the service will be able to continue. It's very important as we approach the closing period of the end of the year. I understand that in respect of Aer Lingus as a company making their decision in regard to cabin crew and the numbers who serve on aircraft that they intend to fly across the Atlantic, there is still an opportunity for discussions here between the union and the company, and I would hope that those discussions would take place and a solution be found to this particular situation.
Taoiseach, you were very brief in your answer and you were very keen to trivialise some of the issues. You see, the problem for you is that it's not around the globe, but from Minister Varadkar to Dublin Bus to Shannon to An Post is not a long-winded journey. It's a system and approach being adopted by your government, which is to systematically undermine decent wages and conditions in the semi-state company. That's a fact. There's no other explanation for it, because the people who didn't end the talks were not the workers. The workers were engaged in discussions with management. Management pulled the plug in a very draconian way in a company which the state owns a 25% shareholding. That didn't just happen in relation to the cabin crew. You are aware that there is a pensions crisis in Aer Lingus. The same chief executive has sent in to the Labour Court a negotiating team who don't have a mandate and who are refusing to deal with that crisis. So what we have at stake here, if you like, are very serious issues for workers. And my question to you is, are you going to order your chief executives in the semi-state companies to engage in the industrial relations machinery in the state? And could you, for once maybe, stand behind the workers who built those companies rather than the management who are trying to erode their terms and conditions of employment?
Thank you.
Well, the machinery for negotiation here is well known over the years. Workers, unions and company directors and chief executives are entitled to engage about the affairs of any of these semi-state companies. You'll be aware of the contribution that the semi-states have made over the years. You're aware of the dividend that's now being paid by a number of the semi-states that were not paid before. You're aware of the changes that have been made and the changed work practices that have been brought about here. So there is an opportunity for union and workers to engage with management in respect of Aer Lingus. That's a short enough period, but it's one that should be taken. I didn't hear you mention on Post in your first contribution, but you mentioned it in your second. That's not actually the responsibility of Minister Varadkar. And as I say, I hope that in the case of Dublin Bus, which provides a very important service for the people of this city, that the new ballot will result in the proposals being accepted, and Dublin Bus and its workers who do such an important job get on with the business of continuing a very valid service for the people of this city.